All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is your favorite sorcerer here, Michael Hyson, aka Angelus, son of Abaddon. And today I'd like to discuss some things that's been discussed lately. A lot of things that people have been really curious about, but also hesitant to get into, such as herbalism, getting into alchemy, and most importantly, into poisons and powders. Okay. This is really old school practices, things that the world really doesn't get into anymore outside of the medical field. And the reason they get into the medical field is because of the herbal remedies that are now considered to be generic, a lot of which are just offshoots of the real thing. It's synthetic and really doesn't do the body any good. Okay. Now, this is why. Okay. You take one of the biggest things out there today, which is this disease known as coronavirus, or you take the natural things that we all come down with on a day to day basis or year to year basis, such as the flu, a head cold, a chest cold, or perhaps even certain medical diagnosis, such as a blood disorder, a heart disease, perhaps high cholesterol, okay, or even your everyday gout. All right. These are certain things that have been diagnosed through the medical field as being able to be treated through synthetic materials, medications that is ingested orally. This is what we refer to as unnatural remedies. Okay. Okay. Now, let's start off with poisons. What is a poison? A poison is something that will make you sick. It is something that will make you ill. Whereas herbalism can treat you, it can deal with certain ailments. Alchemy is a way to transform that into something such as a powder, okay? To say, for example, oleums, some form of liquid medication, okay? But then you have powders themselves, okay? Now, we know for a factor that the church, the JCI, categorized between the 16th and 18th century through the witch trials in the burning times throughout this region of time as three distinct powders that were found on accused witches, warlocks, and sorcerers. Now, even in the witch's hammer, the the witches' trials, the witch trials themselves, most of which were accused were women. Okay, now why was that? Was it because of their alluring charms? Perhaps because they were always drawn to the natural healing charms, such as midwives or perhaps healers. Okay, herbalists, things of the earth, think They are the natural balance factor within the world. Okay. Now you consider women represent life and death because it is them who can conceive a child. Without that ability, the mundane race would simply cease to exist. Therefore, this was considered to be life and death, the birth and rebirth of sorcery, witchcraft, and the such. All right. Now, this is just your basic understanding of what witchcraft is and what sorcery is in general, upon the viewpoints of the masculine and feminine energies. But what about this stuff? Okay. Well, let's take a look at it from Nicholas Remy. Okay. He wrote the book Demonolatry, an ancient and historical account of witchcraft. Okay. In the very first chapter, within the first 4 to 5 paragraphs, he touches base on 3 powders. The first is a black powder. Black powder is known to kill. So, and it's used in a lot of traditions today, such as black magic, Satanism, into voodoo, hoodooism, magical traditions that really deal with black powders. Okay. Now you take natural poisons that were used within assassinations, were also associated with black powders. Things that the assassin or the witch was immune to because he or she built up an immunity to that specific brand, that unique powder, okay? Or even paste, liquid, or whatever. It doesn't matter if it's a venom, it doesn't matter if it's a powder, okay? It could be handling tree frogs from South America, which are venomous just to the touch because of the excretion through the skin, the pores in the skin of the frog. Now we know that voodoo powder is made up of various different traditions of or species of pufferfish. We know that the toad, the natural gases of a toad, are utilized and extracted to make up this. We also know that the poisons of tree frogs are also indoctrinated into the voodoo powder. But everything outside of this that is mixed in with the unique brand of voodoo powder is made up of unique products specific to the Bokor or Bokor, okay, the practitioner in general. So black powders are used, such as black salts, black, like say things like gopher powder, stuff like that, that were naturally black powder. Later on, it became associated with the color of gunpowder. Okay, but still, it still goes into alchemy and alchemical processes because you have to break down the stuff to put it into the correct alchemical sequence. Okay, now the the amber color powders were always associated with illnesses, things that made people sick. Okay, this is made up of plants, trees, things that were found on the forest floor, like mushrooms. Okay, things that people had an allergy or an allergic reaction to was seen associated with witchcraft and sorcery because it made people sick. More so during the burning times, the witch persecutions. These powders were seen and collected from the accused. Okay. And then you have the third powder. The third powder was white. Okay. And it was utilized to heal the body of any illness. Okay. Now, what's interesting here is that a lot of people forget that witches and warlocks, sorcerers alike, spend a lot of time out in the wilderness in solitude. They collect plants. They can they collect things like fruits and vegetables and other aspects such as trees, leaves, you name it, it's there. Okay. Now, even the venom of animals. Okay. You look at warfare, the ancient Syrians. Okay. They used to dip their arrows in venom. Now, why was that? Because it was better to kill the enemy slowly, excruciating pain. But yet, they, just like the witch, the sorcerer, they carried the natural cure upon themselves. Interesting, isn't it? So, why don't we take a look at some of these herbs, these plants, and these poisons, and kind of break them down so that you can understand what I'm talking about here. Okay. Now, recently, one of my apprentices became ill, and I meet with this individual once a week on Messenger where we video each other one on one. Now, this client, this apprentice, she enjoys studying on her own, and she's excited the fact that she's learning a lot. Okay. And I like the fact that she's learning because she's evolving as an adept, as a practitioner. And that brings me great satisfaction because to see an apprentice, a neophyte, learning and taking off and exploring is like watching a child learn new things and see their faces light up when they get it correct. Okay. Now, different clients and different apprentices have different perspectives. Some like to have hands on, some like to be taught and led, others like to learn themselves. Now, personally, I like the ones that like to learn themselves because it shows their self motivation for self evolution. Okay. So, when we look at this, because of this illness that she had, okay, could be the common cold, the lack of being able to rest and relax. Okay. So, I suggested honey. I suggested catnip tea. Okay. Catnip tea has been utilized for hundreds of years within the pagan communities. It is a natural tranquilizer. Okay. And what it is you take a pinch per cup and you brew it up. Now, depending on the size of the kettle, okay, the size of the coffee pot, or however you wish to make it, you got to take into consideration the amount of cups that you're brewing and then adequately utilize the right measurement of catnip. Okay. Now, remember, it is just a pinch per cup. Okay. One pinch per cup of, of tea. And likewise, you can also add in honey because it's a natural soothing agent. Okay. Now, together, this creates not only a natural relaxant, but it also helps soothe the throat as it goes down. When we go even further, let's get into mint. Mint is an herb. Okay. It is a plant that you can grow in a garden. All right. It is a very hostile vine type leaf. Okay. And it does, much like strawberries, take over numerous other items. So if you have carrots, you have lettuce, you have celery, you have potatoes, corn, whatever. Okay. These two plants, the mint will take over. It's a dominant species. Okay. Now, obviously, as a dominant species, a masculine energetic species of herb, It is used for healing, okay? Specifically, the boostering of an immune system, okay? Now, mint can be, say, for an example, spearmint, peppermint, or just plain mint tea alone. Very good stuff. It will boost your immune system. Lemons, okay? Lemons are another thing, another topic. These come from trees, okay? They come from different species, okay? But here's the kicker of it. Lemons not only prevent gallbladder and kidney stones, but they are also utilized as blood purifiers. So if you have, say for an example, a blood disorder, or you have bacteria in the blood, lemons can help purify it and prevent gallbladder stones. You take the juice of apples, okay? Apple juice is an acidic type acid based drink, okay? Children love this. I know my son does, okay? But what if I told you that by drinking a glass of that, perhaps even orange juice, can prevent gallbladder, or not gallbladder, but gout, okay? It helps break down the plaque that builds up in your joints. But people forget about this stuff, so they go to the doctors and spend thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Just a 3-hour trip to the ER or to a hospital, you just racked up at least 4 grand right there in 3 hours. You're paying for the drug, you're paying for the doctor, you're paying for the room, and you're paying for the time in itself to diagnose. And if you go in and do an x-ray, that's an extra 1,000. So by the time it's said and done, you've racked up at least 10 grand. And we all know how deliveries are. That's $19,000 right there. 19. Just for a natural delivery that takes 3 days for you to be released from a hospital. Yeah, fun, isn't it? But let's go with other things. Let's go with there's a lot of people out there that want to have a family. Okay. In medical diagnosis, one of the big things is stress remover. But you look at the foods that you eat, like vegetables. Okay. One of the books here that I would recommend to you is Wicca in the Kitchen by Scott Cunningham. Hell of an author, hell of a guy, but most importantly, he was one of the leading herbalists in paganism, right up until he passed away back in 97. Okay, that's 1997. All right, he's got numerous books out. Now, 2 books that I would recommend outside of, well, 3 books really, is The Book of Shadows, Wicca in the Kitchen, and Encyclopedia of Witchcraft. Now, he also has a book out there called The Magical Recipes of Herbalism. Good books, really good books, but when you break it right down, you really want to know about the foods. You want to know about the plants. So I would recommend the Encyclopedia of Herbalism and that of Wicca in the Kitchen. Just to you. Okay. You can also go into Paul Huzon's books. Okay. Paul Huzon is a hell of an author, but even better practitioner. He even has a book on herbalism, okay, that I would recommend. Just a few pointers for you who are interested in getting into herbalism. Now, like I said, you have to know how to identify these plants in the wilderness. You have to learn to identify them in your own gardens if you do it that way. Like I said, some of these are dominant species. Some are subservient. Others grow on trees instead of the ground. Okay. Things like celery is good for reproduction. All right. Fruits, vegetables, always a good thing. All right. But let's get into certain things like the types of poisons. Okay. Arsenic, strychnine, ricin, sanin, polonium, VX, arrow poison fog. Okay, these are just 7 types that you can identify for poisons. Most dangerous are the arsenic, mustard gas, cyanide, and all this other stuff that is associated with war and famine and stuff like that. But when you get into herbalism, you really want to look at things like hemlock, aconite, okay, belladonna, dima, dimethyl mercury, tetrodotoxin, polonium, mercury, cyanide, botulinum toxin, arsenic, castor bean, rosary pin, monk's hood, bushman's poison, angel's trumpet, okay, water hemlock, English yew, snake root, the stray nine tree, moonseed, daphne, narcissus, orlander, rhododendron, chokecherry, and nightshade. Okay, these are just some of the most common poisons that were recorded throughout history. Okay, and you'll notice I'm also reading from not one but 2 of my grimoires here because I had taken down so much notes. And hello, Hades, welcome to the group. And yes, I did see that up there a little bit ago. Um, some of the things like wolfsbane, monk's hood, devil's hemlet. You got to remember that a lot of this takes on different names, but that there's also different species of it. Okay. Now, the poisonous properties of membus of the acorn item genus have been known for generations. Okay. Through several species of the plant. For an example, the toxins have long been used in preparing poison-tipped arrows for purposes of hunting and warfare. Within human accidental poisoning, though, through ingestion, it can be fatal. The plants contain appropriately named. Sorry, my cat just came in. One of them. Get out of here, Bella. Cats. She hears daddy's voice and's got to come running. But anyways, as I was saying, appropriately named aconitine neurotoxins and candiotoxins, which lead to gastrointestinal complications, motor weakness, and heart and lung paralysis. Okay. And you got so many different types here that can be brought down. You have things like angel's trumpets, white snake root, dumb bean, uh, rosemary pea, grabai. Okay. You have de la morte or the little apple. Okay. You have the suicide tree, the castor oil plant. Okay. These are all things that can be utilized. And then on top of that, when you get right down to it, it's not just about the poisons and how they're utilized, but the symptoms that they progress within the body, especially if you don't know what you're utilizing within it or what you're surrounding yourself with. Okay. For an example, those of you in North America, okay, have you ever wondered about the plants that you find around your schools, playgrounds, and parks? What if I told you that they're poisonous? You didn't think about that, did you? Hmm. Well, here's my other grimoire. Canium, otherwise known as hemlock, widely known for its uses in ancient Greece as means of execution, to which hemlock's most famous victim was Socrates, the philosopher, who suffered the effects of the plant's most potent toxin, oni. Okay, that's ONIINE. Okay, just 6 to 8 leaves, or even smaller dose of the seed or roots usually does it, but causes death by disruption of the body's necro necromuscles, okay, neuromuscles rather, junctions, okay, resulting in what is known as ascending muscular paralysis. Okay, the paralysis typically begins in a person's legs and ascends up the body until in reaching the respiratory muscles, resulting in death. Okay, Orlander, a shrub. This shrub is one of the most dangerous on the list, which is bizarre on account of how widely it's used. Okay. You remember what I said to you about, did you ever wonder about the shrubs and plants around playgrounds, schools, and everything in between? Okay, such as parks. This is what I'm talking about right here. It is widely used as a decorative shrub. This bush peps up, pops up in parks, schools, in backyards, all over the country. Okay, yeah, all over the country, ladies and gentlemen, especially in the southern and west regions of the USA. Its leaves, flowers, and fruit all contain chemicals known as cardiac glycosides, which, while therapeutic in precise doses, can put a person into cardiac arrest if ingested unsystematically. Okay? So remember that next time you go to a park, a school, or even a playground. Okay? Monkshood, wolfbane, or devil's helmet as poisonous properties of Membius of the Arcan. Well, actually, I'm not going to read that one because I've already done it in the other one. But white snake root. Okay, white snake root is a potent that just drinking the milk or eating the meat of a cow that's ingested the plant can lend or can lead to severe sickness and even death. The plant the plant contains a toxin called trematol. Now, isn't it ironic that trematol is actually a medication prescribed by doctors? Oops, didn't see that one coming, did you? Which, when ingested by humans, can lead to trembling, vomiting, and serious intestinal troubles. The illness brought on by secondary trematol ingestion was so widely spread in the early 19th century that it became known as milk sickness, and estimated to be responsible for thousands of deaths at the time, including that of Abraham Lincoln's mother, Okay. Ironic, isn't it? Angel's trumpet is another one. I would recommend that you get into herbalism and that you get into poisons and venoms and see how they were used, especially when breaking things down into powders. Okay. Now, that's just some of what's in these grimoires. I can tell you firsthand that mixing powders together, even in experimental proportions, can create hallucinations. They can create almost a secondary high, almost like a narcotics type atmosphere. Okay. You look at things like, say, for an example, red dragon's powder. You look at black powder or black sand mixed in with, say, sulfur. Get into graveyard dirt, the crystallized version of mirror. Um, say, for example, gopher dust. You get into frankincense, and you mix these together and you light them on fire with sage. I can tell you it will knock you on your ass. It will knock you on your ass. If I wasn't sitting in this thing, I would have been on my ass. But the funny thing is, after it wore off, I ended up sleeping the better part of a day. And I was just in here experimenting in rituals. So beware of what you're mixing and how you're doing it and what you're utilizing it for. If you're into powders and you're into things like liquids or the liquid version of medications, if you're into certain things like that, I would recommend Raymond Buckland's book, who died earlier this year. Okay. He basically had a book called The Complete Book of Witchcraft. And I want to say it's around chapter 13, I think. It's about halfway to three-fourths way through the book. And he has like 20 pages just on herbs, plants, not only their Latin names, but also what they can do and what they can heal. Okay. I would recommend that you look into that book as well. All right. Now, why did I get into herbalism and why did I get into poisons? Okay. Why did I get into alchemy? Okay. As a shaman, as a practitioner of the arts, I can tell you that for you to heal something or someone, you have to know about the different calamities that can cause the illness, not just poisons throughout history, but you look about what the world uses within their territories. Like I read about the parks, the playgrounds, the schools, decorative shrubs that turn out to be venomous and poisonous. You look at the little apple that's similar to the willow tree, the weeping willows. Okay, when it rains, these poisons or the sap leaks onto your skin and creates a rash. Okay, a rash that's almost like acid eating through your skin. And don't even get me started on what happens if you ingest it. Okay, so now you understand why a lot of my videos that I do when I teach this stuff and share with you this knowledge is not for children, not for the youth. It's for the adults, for you to learn from your mistakes and to learn about how to avoid and to identify these plants, these trees, these shrubs, okay, these natural things that could benefit you greatly or destroy you from internally or externally. But you're the one that has to sit down, and decide for yourself if you're going to delve into these properties. I can tell you, for something to be created, You must destroy it, much in the same way as the Tower card in cartomancy. You have to destroy to create. You have to understand what causes death, sickness, or any form of illness, ailment, to even begin to diagnose it and then to treat it. Witches, warlocks, sorcerers have always been known as wise men and women of the craft. Okay? Because of their long knowledge and their grimoires, they were feared but highly respected and sought after. There's numerous stories throughout history that prove this fact, from African traditions to Greek to European, even to the Middle Eastern practices of the Arabic nations. But how would you know this if you did not study it? That you did not delve into it with a big old belly flop into that proverbial cesspool of knowledge, undiscovered and untapped knowledge. A lot of you don't do it because it's out of fear, because you don't want to go against the herd conformity. But in reality, only you can decide if you want to evolve or not. That's up to you. So I hope this has been an educational video. I hope it's been enlightening. And you can always comment here on my videos, or you can contact me on my Facebook Messenger, okay? Or even tag me in Facebook, okay? I will always reply, and I will always make myself available to the public, all right? Until next time, Agios Satanas, my friends. As above, as below, so mote it be. Have a good one, and until next time.